So there's my tip. I put it on there, just taped on like that. I'll take another piece, like that, and I'm going to lay it across. Now, you almost never duct tape anything when you're building this way, wrapping. It's a very bad technique, except if you want to secure something. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm securing the tip. I really want to make sure this tip doesn't come off. So what I'm doing is I am wrapping, but I'm not pressing too hard. I'm not really cranking the tape, or else I'd crush this foam, the blue foam, and that would be problematic. Although it's much less of a problem with these new sword designs, because this open cell foam, this closed cell foam is so much more resilient and stronger. It doesn't really care if you tape it down too much. So now my tip is intact. There we go. Okay, so now this next step is sort of bizarre, a little bit more strange to wrap your head around, and so you'll want to pay close attention. I've cut these long, very thin strips of foam. I have cut them out from the edge of the foam. So if I had my original piece here, I'm not cutting them a certain width. I'm just using the width of the foam. You can see like that. So what I've done is I just cut long strips, and I just left the original width that I'm using. Once again, they're the same length as the swords were. In this case, 2 feet 3 inches. But really, this is a very thin width. It's like it's exactly 1/4 of an inch, and so it's kind of hard to cut them at that exact length. Even thinner it can be better for this step. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this right down the middle. And you might say, oh, why are you doing that? I mean, the sword looks so cool already. I mean, it's nice and flat, looks great. Yes, it does look great, but if someone were to accidentally get hit with the flat end of this, they've got a nice fiberglass rod whacking them, and you'll get a nice fat bruise. So what you're doing is you're putting this foam right down the middle so that in case somebody does get the flat, they've got some amount of padding. And this is all you need, really, 1/4 of an inch of this really tough foam, and that does it. Now, also, people like the look, if they push this back and they put the foam right there, it would look flatter. But what I found is that by putting this foam all the way up to the tip, it keeps your tip from folding over in a stab. It keeps it straight, and it helps it be sort of like a spine. So I'm going to run this right along here. And this is where this weird roll of duct tape comes in that's cut in half. Because what this is for is to secure the center. So what I did is take a long piece like that, and I roll it up into a tube. And you have to if you pull really tight on the ends, it tends to do it for you. So there's a tube. And I set that right down the center. And then I just lay this right in here. Now this isn't really going to keep this foam on completely. I'm going to cover this with a whole layer of duct tape. But it certainly keeps it on while I'm working, which is really important. Because if it's off center at all, and I miss the rod, then I could hurt somebody. So I really don't want that to happen. So I'll do that again kind of slower. I pull really tight on each end, away from each other. And I push this down, and then I roll it over and over. And then sometimes I tap the middle to get it to stick there. That creates a long tube. And then I just set it right down the middle, like that. And I press this right down on top of it. And again. This is one of the more long and tedious steps. Don't make the piece too long, by the way. You'll find it's hard to get it to roll into a tube if it's too long, and then you spend more time trying to get it rolled into a tube than you would have spent just rolling 2 of them smaller. So don't go too long. Usually about 6 inches or so is pretty good. Get this last little piece here. Now I'm going to add a little extra. I'm going to actually go all the way to the end, and that's because I'm going to show you the knockout in a minute, the pommel part. So I'm going to let this tape go even further than the foam, because this part here is going to end up being covered by these extra small pieces that I've cut out in advance that go onto the knockout. I'll show you that in a bit. So that's one side. Just flip it over. The same thing on the other. About 6 or 7 inches there. Pull out tight, both sides. You just pull it really tight like that, and press the middle, and you go. Now I've gotten after I've practiced making these swords, you can get quite fast at them. I can do one of these swords now in about 20 minutes, and if I'm really focused on it, and so as you can imagine, you can make 3 short swords in 1 hour. You can create quite a few. In fact, I have. So that's another thing that's really great about these swords as opposed to the older designs, is that they don't take nearly as long to make. They're quite quick to produce, and as I said, the materials are really cheap. Fiberglass rods, 6 feet of fiberglass rod is about $3. So I can make 3 swords out of 6 feet. So that means that right now, this sword right here, the fiberglass rod is, there's only about $1 worth of rod in this. For the foam wise, as I said, it's $6 for 6 feet. So I can make 40 or 50 swords out of that. So, and that's really the only expensive things in here, other than the tape. So you're really talking about swords that are under $5 easily per sword. You're talking more like $1.50 or $2 of materials per sword, which is really great when you want to create a lot of weaponry. So that goes out there. Turn that off. I'm almost done with this end. Okay. Okay, I think we got that situated like we want. Okay. All right, so that's that. And I'm going to check to make sure that it really is going right up down in the center. That looks pretty good. Okay, so the next step, you can do either the crossguard or the pommel, and I prefer to do the crossguard first. So once again, do this. This technique is really important. The rolling up the tape and taping it to itself to create a rolled tube. The tubes are important because they kind of take the place of glue. This is why you don't really need to use glue anymore. I'm putting this on at an angle, see, it's sort of diagonally. But the reason why is that then you cover more. You cover more of this. I'm going to set this up right along there. You can kind of move it if you don't think it's quite centered. You can measure it if you really want to. But I've done so many of these that I really just sort of eyeball it. Yeah, putting the flat side up. You don't have to do that. You could have made your sword with the flat side down, which would give it a different look. Something more like that if you want. But I find that the flat side down is interesting, but on the whole, flat side up looks a bit more efficient and to me. So that's how I make my swords. You can do yours. You're also welcome to create any of your own sort of crossguards out of other foam. You can create some crossguards that curve up, really long crossguards, crossguards that go all the way down and become sort of bell guards. There's an unlimited amount of guards you could create, but this is just very efficient. It saves you a lot of time by using the cutouts for this. So I'll do the other side too. Looped it over. Now this is a big difference in the way we make swords now with this closed cell design, is that they're not modular. Our old modular swords, the hilts all came off. And the blade was one piece and the hilt was something else. And you could change the hilts out. And it was very nice in a way, but it was also much more costly to be able to do that. And they were not as strong. They broke, often right there, and would wiggle and rattle. And they were heavier because of that. So these swords, because they're one piece, don't break as easily, not nearly as easily, and that ends up being a much better feature than the fact that they're modular. So I've duct taped that down to the center. I'm just going to put a piece right over the top. It's not really necessary, but I find it makes the rest of the steps just easier, because you're going to cover that later. But I find that just doing this one step right now saves you a lot of hassle later. So I'm just going to secure it down so it won't wiggle or move around on me. There we go. Now I'm going to do the edges. Pretty small piece, about 5 to 6 inches. I press these two sides together, and I come in and I press the duct tape at the top. Now this is a point you're going to want to look closely, because there's a technique to this little step, and if you can get it down, it'll save you a lot of time. So you press that in, you press the sides down, and you push it out, and it's sort of an origami step here, because you pull back, and the sides sort of fold in on each other, like that. They kind of create this backwards fold, and then you can push that right up in and fold those sides down. So with one piece, I've completely covered the entire side. Now, I intentionally kept it short, because if it was really long, it would have come down like this, and that would be really hard to tape. So I wanted it to be just about the right length. That's why 5 or 6 inches was just about perfect for that. I'll show it again on the other side, where you press these two sides together, like that, and I'm going to put the duct tape on, and then once again, it's sort of a reverse fold, where you push these sides down, you come out, and then when you pull this back on itself, it doubles back and allows you to tape it right up against itself with just one go.
Thanks for watching part 3 of new FanWar swords. The next video is there. Watch this video again. Click there. Check out my channel. Link is right there. Right. Shut up.